Okay, so welcome everyone to our session this afternoon on Every Brown Drop Counts, Wastewater Reuse in the Arab Region. I will just show you very briefly our agenda so you get an idea of how the session will be structured. We will have some opening remarks, then we'll have a presentation by Siwi to set the scene on climate change, water scarcity and wastewater reuse in the region. We'll have 3 country showcases from Jordan, Lebanon and Palestine. Lebanon and Palestine will be online speakers joining us. And then we'll have a moderated panel discussion and some time for Q&A from the audience and some closing words in the end. And just a few housekeeping rules for the online participants. Please mute your microphones. You can use the chat for any questions that you have, and we will collect them for the Q&A session in the end. And with this, I will hand over to Trevor Surridge. He is the head of the GIZ water portfolio in Jordan, and he will give us some opening remarks.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, welcome, ahlan wa sahlan, to the session. Very happy to have so many friendly faces in the audience to share in our session today. So I suppose what you'll all be wondering, why have you come here and why is this an important session? And I think when we reflect on why knowledge exchange is useful and why it's important, that's why we're here today, to talk about wastewater reuse. And in the region, it's a challenging topic that has all sorts of different facets to it. But through a knowledge exchange platform and through knowledge exchange in general, one is able to meet up with like minds and also meet up with colleagues that are able to share some light and share some insight into different ways of doing things and approaching things in their region and in their country. And through this knowledge exchange, one is able to often discover that you're not alone in some of the challenges that you have, and also manage to discover solutions that you can then also co-create together. And I think that's really the beauty of knowledge exchanges. And I'm very happy today that this session is bringing together not only colleagues from Jordan, but also Lebanon and Palestine, and all of you in the audience to share in this exchange. And hopefully we'll all learn a lot from the session today. So with that, I hand back over to the moderator. Just a very short hello from myself, and welcome to everyone, and happy that everyone's here. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. Just one more remark. This session is fully in English, so there is no translation into any language. All the speakers will be speaking in English. And also just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Mintje Burma. I'm working as a water and sanitation advisor at GIZ in Jordan, and I will be moderating the general session today. And with this, I would like to hand over to Manal Schreide. She's working for the Stockholm International Water Institute as a WASH governance specialist. She has more than 12 years of experience in the water and sanitation field in different capacities and organizations, focusing on WASH sector governance, climate change, and capacity building needs. And she will give us the first presentation on setting the scene.
Thank you. I'll hear myself. Hello, everyone. So glad to be here today and introduce about the institutional framework of reuse in the MENA region. So the structure of today's presentation, it will be 2 parts. First, I will reflect a bit on the current situation of water scarcity in the MENA region, and then we will move through the governance framework for the reuse in the region. So first of all, during 2022, Siwi, together with UNICEF Minoro, we conducted a regional assessment covering 14 countries in MENA region to analyze the water scarcity and the climate change situation in the region. And based on the analysis, as you can see in the diagram, around 14 countries in the region is in an absolute water scarcity situation. And that the source of this data is it's according to FAO Aquastat data. That means that the country, the region, MENA region, is really under water stress. And if you can see the total renewable water resources in MENA region, it's 283 cubic meter per habitant per year, compared to the global one, which is almost 1/10 of the global median. Also, if you look at the percentage of water uses per sectors, we can see that agriculture sector using the highest amount of this water, no? And that's guide us to why we have to think in treated wastewater. No, the region is really subjected to water scarcity. We are under water stress. We need also we have a climate change and a drought. That means that we need to build our wash and water sector to be more resilient for the climate change risks. Then also the immigration, the population growth, it's another factor it's another factor that impacts the uses of water resources in the region. Also, at the end, we need to achieve the sustainable development goals. So all of these factors, the increase of water demand, it's higher than the available water resources. This guides us to think that in the MENA region, we need to think in unconventional water resources, right? And in this presentation, as we is really experienced in water governance, we try to summarize the governance framework, the policy for the reuse in the region, what kind of policy or strategy are there, what is the current situation, what kind of institutional framework is there, how about the finance, what kind of financing models do we have in the region, and then do we really monitor the reuse in the MENA region or in these countries, and at the end, the capacity building factor. So first, if I will start with the reuse policies and the strategies. I think most of us know what do we mean by reuse policies. We need to have the policy and the strategies for the reuse, meaning that there should be standards for use if we use it for example, for agriculture or for industrial purposes. But for example, one of the successful model we will hear now from Jordan experience. In Jordan, we have very good policies, standards, and regulations for reuse for different sectors, for industrial and for agriculture. But also, if you go to the second part of the governance framework, which is the institutional agreement, we can see that we need to improve the institutional framework of reuse governance in the region. Another successful model for the reuse for the policies, we can see in Egypt, for example, they managed to develop policies and the strategies for industrial sector and for agriculture, but it's also contribute to the socio-economic development in the country. And this is a successful model, moving and shifting from centralized treatment in some countries to semi-centralized. It's another model for developing the policies or successful policies. I will not go through all the models, but we can share, I think the presentation, it's available so you can see other models. But another important aspect, which is the institutional framework, meaning that when we think in reuse over the sanitation service chain, so we have water stakeholders, the service providers, we have the water companies or the wastewater companies who do the treatment, and at the end when we go to the reuse, there is other stakeholders like agriculture sector or farmers, the end user, no? So then we need to make sure that the institutional framework, we have the regulation, we have standards, we monitor the responsibilities and rules are clear between these different stakeholders. And one of the successful models for that is to improve the public-private partnership for the operation. No, this was implemented in United Arab Emirates, for example. Also, another model. It's related to regulation. So in Saudi Arabia, they have a regulatory entity that monitor the performance of a treatment, but the private sector, they are the one who is responsible for the operation of the service. So this is another model for the institutional agreement. Again, we need to ensure that different stakeholders are all on agreement with the clear rules and responsibilities. The third part, which is the most interesting part, which is finance, we cannot do a lot without having or secure finance or funding channels for reuse. And it's not like the first thing we think when we talk about finance, it's funding agencies. But in reality, we need to think in other models of finance. We need to think in business models, include the private sector, for example, access to climate finance, to climate finance, how we can bring climate finance to reuse sector. So this is one of the models for the finance. For example, in Jordan, they have multi-layer funding channels for reuse. In some areas, private sector, public-private partnership, or the involvement of a private sector, it's a model for financing. And I just want to highlight here that it's really important to think in other models of financing for the reuse and think out of the box. The fourth component, which is related to the capacity building, like we need to build the capacities of different stakeholders about the reuse and the type of reuse. And here it's not only about the farmers. We also need to think of building the capacities of different institutions about the reuse and importance of reuse and integration of reuse in our water budget. For example, in some countries, treated wastewater is part of the water budget, and it's part of the water budget calculation. So it's a main source of water. One of the models I can maybe reflect here, it's about the collaboration with academic institution. The science is something updated every day. We need to learn new techniques. We need to make sure that governmental employees are really updated always about the new science and include that in their daily working activities. Last but not least, monitoring and evaluation. Reuse, it's quite sensitive because if we use treated wastewater for agriculture, then it will come to the food cycle, and then we are the user for that. So we need to make sure that the quality of the treated wastewater match the standards that we mentioned at the beginning. No, so there are also some models for monitoring and evaluation, and monitoring and evaluation for the reuse. For example, in United Arab Emirates, they have a real data monitoring system, which is updated on a regular basis. You also can develop key performance indicators to assess the level of quality, the treated water quality, benchmarking reports or audit reports, which is published and accessible for all. So to summarize, as I mentioned, that the region is really subjected to high water stress and we are under water scarcity situation, then reuse is one potential source for water we can use. And and then if we think in the reuse, then it's super important here to think in setting up the governance framework for the reuse, because I don't want to mention the name of the countries, but many countries fail to ensure the progress of and the good implementation of reuse projects. It's like projects which is implemented by some international organization, but it's not replicated or it's not really oriented into the national plans. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Manal, for this great overview. So now we will have a panel discussion with 3 panelists. One is here in the room, 2 are online. But before we start with the panel discussion, every one of the panelists will give you a short snapshot of how the situation is in each of the 3 countries. So each of them will have maximum 8 minutes, and I will also let you know when the last minute starts so that you can start to wrap up your presentation so that we have enough time for a very interesting panel discussion afterwards. So for the first panelists, I would like to introduce to you Engineer Wael Aldweri. He is the Assistant Secretary General for Wastewater Affairs at the Water Authority of Jordan. He has experience of more than 15 years working in wastewater management and reuse, and has held many different positions at the Water Authority over the last 10 years. And this is your presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to welcome everybody here who are attending with us these presentations from our partners, from our colleagues, all attendees, or funding agency who's joining us today. I would like to have a small presentation about the situation in Jordan, about the reuse in Jordan. Here, if we have a look, Jordan is ranking as the second most water scarce nations globally, with annual water resources under 90 meter cube per person. Projected to decrease to 60 meter cube by 2040, which is below the standard of the poverty of the water on the world. It is less than, let us say, half of it. Jordan have 89,342 kilometer, mostly it's in the arid regions. And I think 95 from the Jordan is facing mostly with the located in the arid, semi-arid and the climate zone regions. You see here our situation during the last, let us say, crisis in Syria, 2011. We are facing around around 1.6 million of refugees coming to Jordan. And we are facing, they are coming to Jordan without water, without sanitation, and we have to arrange all these needs to those hosts. Also, if we have a look about the climate change and the adaptation mitigation, we can find that the situation is in the Dead Sea. We can see it in let us see, the situation, it will be at 2000, how it's have been that time. And our expectation due to the climate change and let us say the weather conditions, 2050. We can feel the difference. So we are facing in Jordan also the climate change, and we have to search through the climate fund for this purpose. You can note that place here. You know, we are facing, let us say, a crisis in the water in Jordan, and our budget, around 1.1 million cubic meter per year. This is our needs. We have disputed them as a circular here about our peace water is around, let us say, 47 million. We have groundwater around 377. We have service water around 239, and we have the reclaimed water around 153. This is in the previous, but now it's reached around 195 million cubic meter per year. We can see that we have 29 treatment plants in Jordan. We are treated around 200 million cubic meter yearly. We have more than one model of a treated water. We have a trickling filter. We have activated the sludge. Most of our treatment plant is now activated the sludge with aeration and with bubbles. Wastewater treatment now focusing on resources recovery, yielding nitrate-rich production. We cannot do that all the treated water are rich with phosphorate and nitrate, which is good for agricultural uses. Jordan policy shift promotes replacing irrigation freshwater with treated water. We are depending on our strategy and water budget to replace the freshwater by the reclaimed water, which is around quarter of the budget in Jordan. We can note that the 50 million is from our reclaimed waters going for fodder crops, let us say for feeds and corn uses for agricultures, and 150 million is dumping to the dam, and we are using also these for agricultural purposes. And most of our treated water is used actually for the agricultural uses. We can note that here in 2016, the effluent is around 150, and how much it's increasing now up to 200 million per year. Also here we can note the number of agreements, how much it's increasing from 240 up to 380,000 agreement per year in the country. And we noted how much dunum we using for agriculture. From the beginning, it's around 16,000. Now we are reaching 24,000 dunum was using, as we have the photo here, with feed crops agriculturals. Also, the price of the treated water is what it was subsidized by the government. It's around just only 20 fils. And it cost us around, let us say, more than 0.7 JDs. But we are subsidized it from the government to the agricultural associations. We have some goals related to the wastewater. We are searching for sustainable development, public health and environment protection. We are sharing the responsibility according to the scarcity of the water in Jordan and the decreasing of the well fields. Also improving the quality of life, improving wastewater services, public, private sector participation. We have a lot of projects with PPP, partnership with the private sectors related to the reuse, starting to establish trunk lines from the treatment plants. Also adaptation to climate change impacts. Efficient agriculture water use involves combining and improving irrigation methods and appropriation crop selection. We can note that we are thinking how to use also sprinklers, same as other countries. We have a look there. We are planning to have to expand our reuse agricultural area in the future by using high technologies related to the wastewater sector. Thank you. I think it's finished.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this example from Jordan. Now we come to our first online speaker. I will move the slides for you. So I hope I will be able to hear you. Just let me know when you want the slides to be moved. So I'm happy to introduce to you Layal Abi Esper from Lebanon. She has 19 years of experience in the fields of climate change, wastewater treatment and reuse with different international organizations. She joined the UN Habitat Lebanon office in March 22 as a climate change coordinator, where she is leading a project funded by the Adaptation Fund and related to increasing resilience to climate change related water challenges in Lebanon and Jordan through several adaptation measures, including wastewater reuse. So this is your first slide, Layal.
Okay, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Great, thank you.
Thanks to everyone for joining this session. I'm very happy to be joining today to tell you more about our challenges in Lebanon in terms of water scarcity, but also what has started to be done in this respect in Lebanon. So basically, I'll start with the presentation. So next slides, background information. To give you a quick brief on the situation in Lebanon, what happened in Lebanon in 2019 is that we were hit by an unprecedented financial crisis, and it has really crippled the country. So basically what happened following this crisis is that 82% of the Lebanese population became below poverty line, and 40% became below extreme poverty line, as per data from UNESCO. And as a result of this, obviously, local farming became a significant trend, obviously, because people want to try to confront the rising food security issues as a result of this crisis. And as a result of this increase in local farming, normally there was a parallel increase in water demand. And the water in Lebanon, usually when it's agriculture, the agricultural sector, is sourced through river water, through groundwater, but even through raw wastewater. Yes, raw wastewater during the dry periods. So based on the Litani River Authority, and the Litani River Authority, it's a government authority in Lebanon, basically, which manages the Litani River. The Litani River, it's the longest river in Lebanon, and it flows fully inside, like within the Lebanese boundaries. So it is a very important source of water in the country, both for domestic and for agricultural purposes. Based on the Litani River Authority, 46 million meter cube of domestic wastewater, raw domestic wastewater, end up in the Litani River, which is used for irrigation purposes. 8,400 hectares of agricultural land in the upper basin of the Litani River are being watered with raw wastewater, which hasn't undergone any type of treatment. So facing this increase in local farming, increase in water demand, and the very polluted river water supply in the country, but also irrigation with raw wastewater practices, it is extremely important to supply a sustainable and clean irrigation water source. Thus, the need to use, to upscale wastewater reuse practices in the country. Now, to give you a brief around what is the potential in Lebanon, the potential based on the national water sector strategy, we have 150 million meter cube per year, okay, and based on 2020 numbers that can be reused. The number is smaller based on a more recent study, but in this study, they also looked at the next slide, please, Minche. Sorry. Can we move to the next slide? So if you look at the chart on the right side of the slide, you will see that not all the water is treated to the secondary and to the tertiary level. So basically, based on a more recent study in 2022, they reported a potential which is lower. It's actually because they took into account the level of treatment that the wastewater treatment is reaching, and also correlating this to the type of crops and the presence of the irrigation area, the type of crops which are present in the area which is adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant. But in fact, if we retrofit our wastewater treatment plants and improve the efficiency of wastewater treatment, but also if we pump the wastewater to far distances, which could prove sometimes as cost efficient, of course, we can reach the potential mentioned in the National Wastewater Strategy of Lebanon, which is 150 million meter cubes per year. And in front of this, what we are actually reusing in Lebanon is only 0.4%. So this is far lower than the potential that we have. Now, what are the government targets? In 2010, it was stipulated that Lebanon needs to reach 50% reuse of treated wastewater by 2020, which unfortunately we're not even close to. So the target in 2020 was 50%. We're actually reusing only 0.4% in 2020. So the national strategy was updated in 2020. They did not mention numbers, but they mentioned wastewater reuse as a high priority for the 2035 horizon. Can we move to the next slide, please? Now, on the projects that are taking place in Lebanon in this respect, first of all, there is a pilot project which was done in Ablah region in the Ba', but it's really very small. It's a pilot project, only 20 hectares of irrigated land, and it's not operational at present, unfortunately. There is also a project called MAGO, which is taking place at the American University of Beirut. Again, it's a pilot project, very small wastewater reuse scheme, but it had really important conclusions. They demonstrated the safety of using secondary wastewater on potatoes and maize, but also a 60% decrease in the cost of irrigation. There is now an upcoming project called GATE, which will be funded by the World Bank. Now, under this project, there are plans to do expansion of existing wastewater network and wastewater treatment plants, but the investment in wastewater reuse is still not really known. So it's a sector that they will look at, but we still don't know what are the targets in this respect. And of course, our UN Habitat project, which is currently ongoing and under implementation. I'll go through this project quickly with you to show you what we are doing. The project is titled Resilient Water Solutions. Can we go to the next slide, please? Resilient.
Yeah, also you have 1 minute left only.
Okay, so the title is Resilient Water Solutions Against Climate Change. I'll quickly show you, if we have too little time, what the size of the project. So we are going to reuse 20,000 meter cube per day of wastewater in agricultural irrigation. And it's the first full-scale project in Lebanon. So it will be like a model project in the country. We are contemplating to irrigate 800 hectares of land. Now, in terms of testing, we are lucky that the testing result came out to be excellent. We tested coliforms, we tested heavy metals, we tested nutrients, and all of this was very good. Now, telling you about the challenges and how we are solving them. First of all, we had we faced a mentality barrier. And to solve this, we had to do inclusive and participatory approach to project planning and implementation, a lot of testing to give confidence to the people so that they agree to reuse the wastewater, training also on the benefits of reuse, synergies and complementarities with other projects to give a bit of our experience into other trainings that are taking place related to wastewater reuse. And also the plan is to also show success stories from Jordan, because this project is between Lebanon and Jordan. Then there is another challenge, the financial crisis and electricity shortage in Lebanon. And here we had to integrate sustainability measures within the design of our projects by doing training, by seeking additional funding to upscale and replicate the project, seeking commitment from local authorities to be involved in the management of the wastewater reuse scheme and the distribution of the wastewater, testing a socioeconomic study to determine the tariff, because as our colleague just mentioned, without tariff, we cannot operate and sustain the project and the reuse activity in itself, and developing operation and maintenance manuals and an EIA study. And the final challenge that I want to point out today is the matter of pumping time. When it's agriculture and farming, we need the water in the morning and in the evening. So if we are going to do solar pumping of the water, it's very important to do net metering. And because during the morning, early morning and in the evening, there is no sunlight, obviously. So now we are in contact with the Électricité de Liban and Électricité de Zahli. So those are the electricity agencies in Lebanon, government agencies, to start a net metering practice so that we can meter the electricity to the grid and then use the government electricity during periods where there is no sunlight. Thank you, Minji. Over to you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Layan.
I hope I haven't exceeded a lot the time allocated to my presentation.
Great. This was a very interesting, different country experience that you showed us. And so with this, I would like to go over to our third panelist for today and our second online speaker. I would like to introduce to you to Mohammed Said Al-Hamadi. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Water Sector Regulatory Council in Palestine. He is also a key founder of a number of water and environmental institutions in Palestine and led the Palestinian team in the environmental negotiations under the Middle East peace process. He worked as a water and environmental expert in many different capacities with many different types of institutions. So the floor is yours. You also have 8 minutes, and I will move the slides for you if you let me know.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm really glad to be joining this session, but sadly from Palestine, not with you. I'll be quick. I'll try to be quick. This morning, a number of institutions met together to update the water and wastewater strategy in Palestine 24-29. And your term, every drop count, was one of the key pillars in that discussion. But again, we have added the concepts of circular economy, gender mainstreaming, youth engagement, research and innovation in the new updated strategy. What we have done to promote the wastewater reuse in Palestine, I'm not yet with the slides. We have established by law, the Water Sector Regulatory Council, where we have clear indicators, benchmarks, and monitoring modules and tools. We have built an incentives program to promote efficient implementation and to support the private sector engagement. We have developed a tariff system for water and wastewater, and we have developed the regional utilities by law. Now, this brings me to the slides. Thank you for putting the first slide. Is Palestine one of the fragile water countries? Yes, it is. When I say one of the lowest per capita, it means that there are at least 50 communities where our service providers, which are receiving less than 50 liters per capita per day, which is way below WHO standards. And the time frame for having water in their tap is getting up to 30 days. So every 30 days, they can see that water is running through the tap. When I say territorial fragmentation, I'm talking about almost 300 service providers in a small place like Palestine and 25 in Gaza. Out of these, 76 service providers are providing wastewater and water services. When the operational inefficiencies, that's very clear in Palestine, with high non-revenue water. Customer satisfaction accordingly is not really high. There is chronic underinvestment in Palestine, with all appreciation to the donor countries, but the investment is huge because the demands are huge. In fact, this year, we have faced a 30% reduction in the water we're getting from the Israeli companies, and that's why the complaints is really increasing. Now, this puts another pressure on us. How can one really plan for the next 4 or 5 years with that political uncertainty in the region? It's not only the climate change, but the political uncertainty puts real pressure on us on how can we really plan for the future. Next slide, please. Now, the wastewater sector has its own challenges. Low coverage, I'll show some figures in a minute. In Gaza, we are fine, or more than 75% coverage, but in the West Bank, it's still at 33% coverage, which means more than 60%, more than 2/3 of the population are still using septic tanks or cesspits. The tariff, the 60 or 76 service providers, they have 76 different tariff systems. But luckily, this year, we have developed and published after the cabinet approval, the unified water and wastewater tariff system. And in fact, yesterday we had the first cabinet approvals on number of tariffs. We are trying to cover all service providers as soon as possible. Some are still discharging directly in the wadis, and some wastewater crosses the green line, and that adds to the cost, where the Israeli deduction is reaching 120 million shekels per year for wastewater crossing the green line, or the border between Palestine and Israel. We have deficiencies in financial resources, but again, in technical know-how to manage the wastewater, especially the smaller ones. We have developed capacities for operating the large wastewater plants, but these small ones implemented by NGOs, these are not sustainable at all. Next, please. Next slide, please. Now, the different challenges again, the high energy cost per cubic meter in water and wastewater that goes up to 40%, keeping in mind that almost all our electricity and fuel is imported through Israel or from Israel. There is little coordination among stakeholders. Each believes his own kingdom. In Gaza, we have good reuse percentages, but in the West Bank, that's still very, very minimal. But in Gaza, we add the challenges of the blockade, which means that spare parts are banned from entering the Gaza Strip. Next, please. Now, the national policy, as I've said, today we were discussing and updating our policy. But what we have taken into account that, again, every drop counts, and that circular economy, gender, youth, innovation are a key component in the strategy. National standards, although we have some, but we have decided to update and look into them again. When I say maximize the volume of water, in the West Bank, at least we have 10 million cubic meters of wastewater being secondary or tertiary treated. The intention is to make use of most of that, if not all of it, and at the same time to keep protecting the natural water resources from any pollution, especially wastewater or related irrigation, related farming practices like use of agrochemicals. Next, please. This is just an example of the deductions from our taxes by the Israeli government on wastewater. We have started with almost 2 million shekels in the year 2000. Last year, it has reached 120 million shekels deduction because our wastewater is being crossing the green line. Most of it is treated. Next, please. Now, some of the examples, as I said, in the Gaza Strip, the sewage collection has improved over the past few years between 2015 and 21, and now is reaching 84%. In the West Bank is still at 36%. In the collection efficiency, the tariff collection efficiency in Gaza, which is again going down because of the economic situation, it is less than 40% fee collection, while in the West Bank it is 72% collection. At least that's good enough, at least to maintain the service for some time. Next, please.
You have 1 minute left.
All right, thank you. The wastewater coverage in terms of treatment, in the West Bank, we have 29 facilities. Only 21 of them is working, 14 in a good way. In Gaza, we have 8 facilities and only 5 are working in acceptable way. Next, please. As I've said, the reuse is very minimal in the West Bank. In Gaza, that's still going up because of the need. One of the pressure issues is that because of the economic situation, people are moving into cash crops, and that puts additional stress on water in both West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Next, please. Well, this is only one of the examples. In North Gaza, we have the water banking and adaptation of agriculture to climate change project. We talk about 35,000 cubic meters of aquifer recharge and repumping for reuse purposes. That's in Gaza. In Nablus, we have a project funded by KfW to reuse almost 9,000 cubic meters of treated wastewater a day. In Hebron, the project is under implementation by the World Bank, AFD, EU, and USAID, and that's again to reuse almost 30,000 cubic meters a day. In Jericho, we support with JICA, almost all the wastewater treated is being reused. This is only a very quick summary of the wastewater treatment and reuse in Palestine. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm sure we all got a lot of insights from the 3 different country showcases. And we are happy that the 3 of you will stay for the panel. So I would like to ask Engineer Weil to come back to the stage, and the 2 others will stay online. And for the panel discussion, I will hand over to John Matthews, who will introduce himself just now. And we'll have about 40 minutes for panel discussion and some Q&A.
My name is John Matthews. I'm the executive director for a group called the Alliance for Global Water Adaptation, or AGWA. And I'm very proud to be part of this session. GIZ is a longstanding partner, and AGWA has also been supporting a lot of institutions in a shift towards more climate resilient water supply and sanitation services. This is the second session just today that I've been involved in on this particular topic. So we have about 40 minutes to go through. These are 3 excellent, I think, complementary, but also quite distinct presentations that we saw. And I'm going to begin with a couple. Thank you so much. With a couple of questions from me, and then I'm going to open it up to you here in the audience. And then we also have, if you are attending here virtually, then we really welcome your comments and questions and responses. And we have a way to be able to bring those into the live discussion. So Engineer Weil, one of the things that I was really struck by in your excellent presentation was Jordan is really far ahead in the region, and in terms of the amount of wastewater reuse. And it feels like, especially in conjunction with the other 2 talks, that you're showing a pathway.
Yes.
And one of the things that I was really curious about, I mean, you've reached a very high level of wastewater reuse.
Yes.
But how did you reach that level? Like, what's the period of time that it took to reach that level? And what were maybe some of the really key technological or institutional, maybe even cultural issues that you felt like that had to be overcome during that period?
Thank you. Really, it's a critical question. We are working, I think, since 1 century related to the how we can deal with the reclaimed water, and how we, let us say, extremely arrange ourselves for dealing with the wastewater which is coming from the domestics, by raising the capacity of our treatment plant with high technologies of treated methodologies. We are let us say, have a 29 treatment plant. We are treated 200 million. We have working for our capacity building since of years. We are arranging ourselves with dealing with institutes, same as Holland Institute. We have also our partners from GIZ, KfW, who is integrated with us in a lot of management program that dealing with how to let us say keep the community safe and secure with dealing with this domestic wastewater. Also, we do have a lot of certifications from USAID and other related to the people to learn them how they have to deal with the wastewater in Jordan, and we will deal with the raw water coming to the treatment plant. So we work since centuries together hand to hand with the funding agencies to find sustainable solutions to keep us running on the right track.
It's very impressive, the program that you put together, and I think we need to really celebrate the progress that you've made. Maybe somewhat more technical question.
Yes.
One of the things that I was also really struck by in your talk was how you said almost kind of in passing that there was an important component around trying to balance between irrigation, a water supply,
Yes.
and its efficiency, and also crop selection. And what that suggested to me was that you're actually also integrating this very deeply. It's not just a kind of bureaucratic exercise, that it's information, administrative, and capacity that's coming from high level in Amman, that is actually that you're training and engaging with people at quite a low local level, with people who live in small towns and villages.
Yes.
You're talking with farmers and really engaging them in this larger process. Can you talk a little bit about that?
We have a lot of department and Water Authority of Jordan's. We have a directorate for reclaimed water. It's a specialist in that task. We have also our Assistant Secretary General for the media and interprets. He always sitting with NGOs, with farmers, to engage them directly with the let us say new methodologies related to how they can deal with the treated water, and to, let us say, use it in the right way, since we have a scarcity in the water, and we have to use untraditional type of water to cover the deficit between our supply and demand. Also, we are abiding with the international standard. Jordan is, I think, reaching 99% abiding specification of the reclaimed water. Let us say chemical oxygen demand, biological treated water soil, TSS. We do gathering a sample day by day from our treatment plant to control the situation, to keep it safe and secure.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to turn now to Lebanon, to Lyle, and I'd like to ask a question, a couple of questions quickly to you as well. I was really struck right at the beginning of your talk about this quite dramatic shift that happened because of the war in Syria. That essentially, a very large influx of new people into Lebanon, that many of whom, regardless of what their economic conditions were before they arrived, that they essentially they came with extreme poverty. A terribly sad story, quite a moving one. And I'm curious. It feels like it's very difficult to separate the water supply and essentially the water reuse story from this kind of larger refugee situation. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how if there were patterns, especially maybe in the Litani, the river that you spoke most about, and where these refugees were, if there were special problems around being able to connect with them.
Sure.
The questions
Thank
to our
you,
partners from Lebanon, I think.
To Lyle.
Yes. Yes.
Lego.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, John. So yes. Unfortunately, we are under a very high influx of Syrian displaced people in Lebanon. Now, just so you know, we had a problem in Lebanon with respect to water scarcity even before the Syrian crisis. So basically, losses in the water networks, a lack of tapping of water, I mean, with with storages, lack of the urban designs that can help maximize water infiltration, and so on and so forth. But what happened is that the Syrian crisis has even exacerbated this problem more and more, because unfortunately the Syrian, they settled in the areas which are mostly underserved. So you added pressure to an already deficient situation, and then the stress which was already there. So it's very important, I mean, in this context, a fragile environment, and also an additional crisis on top of it, noting that the situation of poverty does not only touch the Syrian refugees, also the Lebanese population went into a situation of poverty. So the percentages that I showed you are not only for the Syrian people, it's for the general community in Lebanon, Lebanese plus Syrian. We have 80% who are under poverty. And knowing that water is a wealth as well, I mean, it's very important to try to seek to have more sustainable water sources like wastewater, one of, and definitely in addition to other water sources, but wastewater is really very important due to the large quantities. Also offering other advantages, especially when we are discussing the issue of farming, because the people are recoursing to farming in order to ensure their food security. Lebanese and Syrian again. So it's very important to supply them with a sustainable water source that can take the place of a groundwater table which is already deficient and even going down. And we have a lot of springs in Lebanon, like for example in the Bekaa, many springs which are feeding the Litani River, which is our only river which is flowing entirely in Lebanon. So many springs which feed this Litani River, and I mentioned here Anjar and the Shamsin springs, they are drying because of intensive withdrawals by everyone, because of this increasing trend of agricultural practices. So it's very important to seek wherever we can to supply sustainable sources of water, like treated wastewater.
A fantastic answer, and one that I think really emphasizes story of urgency and an urgent response. One of the points that I think also came out in your story was that a kind of key gap around water reuse, essentially finding a kind of new river within Lebanon's borders, in addition to the Litani, is one about the energy that's necessary in order to manage this wastewater. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about these critical energy gaps and some of the options that you've seen about how to overcome those issues.
Sure, as also the financial crisis, not only it has affected the water sector, it has also affected the electricity supply sector. So now in Lebanon, I mean, in terms of government electricity supply, we have only maybe 2 or 3 hours of electricity supply, and for the rest of the time, everyone is relying on private electricity generation through private generators. So in our case, since we are implementing the first full-scale wastewater reuse project in Lebanon, we wanted to really be a model when it comes to sustainability. And given the electricity shortage, we wanted the pumping of water to be supplied with the solar energy. Currently, there is electricity being supplied at the plant where we are working because there is funding received through the Italian government to operate and maintain the facility. But this is not sustainable. This is going to end within a 2-year period. So it was very important to us to be able to supply a sustainable source of power for the plant as part of the inception and the design of our project, so that once this funding ends, I mean, things do not stop there. And obviously solar energy is the recourse for this. But then there is a limitation that I mentioned in my presentation, the fact that the sunlight hours do not match the peak irrigation hours. So it's always important to think about this. And part of this the process would need to be to think and to mobilize net metering. And there is also some work has to be done in this respect. It could be retrofitting the plant with the equipment that will allow us to do net metering, and then the application and the all the paperwork which is associated with this. But the plan is to do net metering, be able to send the electricity generated during the day to the public grid, and in return, the government will supply us with the power in the early morning and in the evening during the periods when watering is needed at no cost. So it will be, through metering, we would, this will compensate, I mean, whatever we are sending to the grid will compensate what we are taking, and we will not add to the electricity wage of the plant through our project.
That's a great answer. And I think it shows quite a bit of resilience and creativity in how you're approaching the issues around energy generation as well as energy consumption. And I think by implication also the revenue around energy consumption. And I'd like to turn now to Mohammed in Palestine. I was struck in your talk, Mohammed, that one of the really kind of consistent issues, both in the West Bank and in Gaza, is actually around cost recovery issues. It's one of the kind of key obstacles is actually in the financial components around water supply and sanitation issues. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about some of the options, some of maybe the emerging issues that you see as potential solutions in that space.
Well, thank you, John. Well, you're right. The cost recovery was a key issue, as I've said, because the fees collection was really going down, especially in Gaza. At some stage, it was almost zero. In the West Bank, it varies between 10% to almost 90%. And now with the installation of water prepaid meters, in some communities, it is up to 100. We know that no donor countries would pay salaries of the staff. And the governmental budget does not really have that luxury to pay for the municipal workers and teams. That's why it was from day one said that water and wastewater have to be self-sufficient as much as possible. Although the government is paying part of the bill. The government of Palestine is buying water from Israeli Makorot company at 3.6 shekels, and it is supplying that to the communities at 2.6, in addition to the cost of operational cost managed by the government itself. Now, in wastewater, as I've said, we have 76 tariff systems in wastewater, but there was no tariff system for reuse. And the reuse is a cost, is costly. We talk about tertiary treatment, and that's costly. In a way, we have introduced the cost recovery concept not only to cover the cost, but to give the private sector the incentive and the encouragement that there is a place for them to be part of the wastewater reuse. We have built and approved by the cabinet the tariff system we have built the incentive systems, and we have introduced the concept of cost recovery for at least to maintain the service and to convince the private sector. Now, what we have done in that, most of the donor support is going to infrastructure, including the internal network of the farms, again, to encourage farmers. The Ministry of Agriculture has built their own unit to support the farmers in terms of technical know-how. The FAO and related UN organizations, as well as different donors, are providing technical support and know-how to the farmers. And at the same time, the Ministry of National Economy is trying to have markets open for the crops and the outcomes of the irrigation processes. So these are some of the issues that we have thought of.
Excellent, and I might add that that cost recovery is not a unique issue to Palestine. It's probably one of the most widespread issues that we see in the water sector worldwide, and it sounds like you're developing quite a comprehensive set of options and solutions, and you're trying to envision those solutions in quite a broad and effective way. My last question to you directly, Mohammed, is I also, right at the beginning of your talk, of course, you referred to the political uncertainty as a real obstacle in the planning process. But I actually thought it was, I thought of it again silently in your talk while you were talking about groundwater recharge and this a new project. It's a variety of donors, it looks like, but the Green Climate Fund is a particular part of it, a very significant project. And I was struck that this is actually, in some ways, it's kind of response to the political uncertainty. You are owning this within your own borders and really taking charge of these water resources. And it's also, I think, in the region, a creative response with a wastewater recharge. I wonder if you could add a little bit more on this project.
Well, again, that's in the North Gaza area, where the aquifer is depleting and salinity is really increasing, which means that the aquifers there are not at all good for human consumption. So aquifer recharge, we have thought that we can make use of the aquifer. We can at least minimize the salinity of the water, and at the same time give the opportunity to store the water independently from building infrastructure which might be subject to security escalations in the future. So in a way that we are not, I can't say we are hiding, but we are trying to find storage areas for the effluent, which is used only during the summer, but at the same time to make sure that irrigation water is available throughout the year. Again, I would like to thank all those donors who are part of it for the innovations. This is really pioneer, and it's a wide, very large scale. We talk about 36 pumping wells that we intend to have. So far, we have built 20, and the regional or the farmers associations were created. The land was selected, the crops were selected, and very soon we are starting using. And that would add to the poverty alleviation in the Gaza Strip, and it is one of the ways to engage women as much as we can. So in a way, that's a very comprehensive. It is a response to the climate change issue in Palestine, a response to the unemployment high rate, and it is economic possibilities for women in the Gaza as well as youth and the unemployed in general. That would, I would say, a pioneer. We would hope to have it duplicated in the West Bank, but because of the Israeli control over aquifers in the West Bank, that doesn't seem possible, at least at this stage. Thank you.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to turn it over to the audience for questions. I have one here, and then number 3. So if we could start here, please. Here's the Mintya right here. Thank you.
Thank you. I have two questions. The first one of the Jordan experience, I would ask about how do you success social acceptance in your country? And the second question is according to, is there a success experience or a success project regarding decentralization, treatment and reuse, especially in rural area? That's it.
Okay. For convincing the farmers to have it, يعني the actual situation now, they are struggling with each other. Struggling, it means they are needed. They fighting to have this water. It means that we are working to convince them since, let us say, 10 years at the beginning, by giving them free to take it, the water free at the beginning. As soon as they are finding that it's rich with nitrate and phosphorate, and they are saving to use, let us say, fertilizers, and they are earning money. Everybody looking for other farmers. Why I have to do the same? They are start earning money. They are doing business. They are investing. So parallel together, they are, let us say, now we have a competition to have this water. I have at least 190 million cubic meter, all of them taking for agricultural uses, which is, we can say Jordan is ideal by using the reclaimed water for agricultural uses now. This is the first point. The second related what, I think? We have now we are working parallel together with GIZ for decentralized treatment plant in rural area. We are starting this since I think 10 years. We established in Al Shobak one treatment plant. We established another one in another area in Jordan, and we are starting now applying this method of statement in our treatment procedures in Jordan. So it's running well, this program, the decentralized treatment plants. So we are working parallel.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. If you could also, the people asking questions, if you could say your name and which institution you're with, we'll go here, here, and then here. Please, yes, sir.
Foundation. So very impressive presentations. Two questions. One is in the other countries also, has the practice of sort of household level or village level treatment, wastewater treatment units, has that been established so that farmers in their own kitchen wastewater, etc., is that happening to at least deal with some kitchen gardens, etc., etc.? And the second is, he mentioned that it's nutrient rich wastewater. Has there been an estimation of the savings in fertilizer because of this kind of use of wastewater, and therefore, it has a climate impact, but has there been a monetary savings because of use of nutrient rich water?
Yes, we do have a calculation. Your question is a specialist in the agricultural ministry, but we do have calculations related how we are much saving from fertilizers. It reach around, let us say, 30% saving from fertilizer for the agricultural uses. It means we are working very hard for that subject, and it's moving the economic cycle in Jordan.
Maybe just a kind of quick addendum to that. I'd be really curious to hear the other two speakers, since you are specifically receiving climate finance on adaptation around water, if you've also been able to document or have prepared a kind of really clear statement of water savings that are relevant, or that you have a strong climate narrative essentially around water. Lyle, if maybe you could go first.
Yes, thanks, John. So we haven't done this calculation yet, but the plan is to engage, and we've done this recently. We are in touch with the Lebanese University, which is an academic institution in Lebanon, which gives certificates to students, advanced certificates. So we are in touch with the Lebanese University, and what we are going to do is that we are going to establish a plot of land at the Lebanese Agricultural Research Institute, which also follows the Lebanese University and the Ministry of Agriculture. We will develop a plot of land with a specific crop over there, and then right next to it a control. And the plan is to assign a student who will study the added value of practicing the reuse on specific types of crops, and also the increased yield. So the plan is to cooperate, the academic institutions on shedding the light, on the added value of using fertilizers and this water in specific, which will help us also, in the training sessions, which will take place as part of the project.
A great answer. Thank you. Mohammed, do you have something to add?
Well, I would give a minute for the three questions. On the social question, first one, we have established the farmers associations where they are part of the planning as well as implementation. We have made exposure visits for farmers to Jordan and Israel. We have the support of the NGOs, and the farmers were part of the tariff setting modules and setup. And we have a climate smart agriculture project between academia, farmers, NGOs, and the government. So all of that has added to the social acceptance. Now, on the issue of the household level, yes, because of the closures that we have, closure of access roads, COVID-19, curfews, lack of infrastructure, all that were really key pillars in promoting the small-scale sort of household level. But I would say that there was not much success. Also during the startup period, they were showing successful implementations, but I wouldn't say that this can be a solution in Palestine. In terms of rich nutrients, keep in mind that some of the agrochemicals are banned in Palestine by Israel, which are the nitrate-based, which means that we were forced to go for either chemicals-free farming and to use the sludge, the compost based on sludge, as well as treated effluent to substitute the unallowed chemicals fertilizers. Thank you.
A fantastic response. Thank you. You, sir, and then here.
Yes, hello. Yeah, my name is Johan Skurgadis. I'm WAS advisor for Norwegian Search Aid. We are a humanitarian organization working, among other, in the Middle East. I have been based in Amman, Beirut, and latest in Damascus. So I'm interested when you brought up the issue of the Syrian crisis and how this is an additional stress factor in this situation. But we have also seen that the destroyed wastewater infrastructure inside Syria, and especially northeast Syria and the Euphrates River, continues to create, let's say, environmental humanitarian disasters like the outbreak of cholera that bled over to Lebanon and to Jordan because of the population movement, and in addition continues to create humanitarian crisis related with water scarcity and then subsequent food insecurity or loss of agricultural production. So my question would be especially to colleagues from Jordan and Lebanon, like if there is any dialogue with your counterparts inside Syria to share experience or to support so that wastewater reuse and safe, even wastewater treatment is kind of back on track inside Syria and on a larger, let's say, scale, if it could be like a funding on that, because it is a humanitarian crisis. Yeah.
Thank you for your question. If I could just ask that these are short responses.
Thanks for your question, and it's critical. Jordan is one of the hosting countries in the world. They are dealing with the refugees year after year. As soon as the Syrian crisis started, we received directly around 1.5 million refugees. We are hosting them in Jordan. Directly, we start arranging to provide them with the services of water by providing, establishing a well inside the camp. Also, we start already establish a package unit, a treatment plant, directly start treated the water directly, and we have a reuse system inside the camp itself. They are getting the benefit from using this treated wastewater. So we do have a pilot project with and we change, let us say, the challenge to opportunity. Actually, it's a big challenge to receive 1.5 million refugees, and we change it as an opportunity, having this treatment plant and getting the reuse, supporting by UN and GIZ for that subject. About the dialogue, these days, the dialogue is started, I think, before a few months with the Syrian party related to that task. And we're hoping that they can solve the issue of the refugees in Jordan. But they start the dialogue.
Thank you. If we could go to you, sir.
Yes, my name is Samir from GIZ Jordan. I would like to thank the three presenters for shedding the light on the status of reuse of treated wastewater in their countries. And I also thank the first presenter for giving the framework. Actually, it was an interesting presentation. As we know, the reuse of treated wastewater is facing lots of challenges, starting from the big investment needed at the beginning to produce the effluent, until we, deliver the effluent to the final destination, the farmers, and then to make sure that the farmers at the end of the day are using the treated wastewater according to the regulation and the standards. My question is not about the investment list challenge, but my question is about the standard and the regulation. Here, it's a big challenge that are facing our countries, actually, because it seems that until now, in all our countries, we are focusing on, setting strict standard and regulation. While the WHO guidelines in the recent years started to be less strict and less stringent with regard to the regulation. My question to the panelists, how do you perceive the standards and the regulation in your countries? Is it strict that would prevent the wide use of treated wastewater, or is it according to the WHO guidelines? I ask this question because really it doesn't make sense to have a strict standard while we as a countries are not capable to do the needed investment to bring our effluent to that standard. Thank you.
I'm going to ask Layal to take that question, because it sounds like you're actively involved in that, making those decisions right now. If you could give a quick response before we turn to at least one online question.
Sure, thanks, John. In our case, it's a bit different than in other countries because, John, we actually do not have national wastewater use standards. But what we are using in our project are the international standards, those of the WHO. Now, with respect to the drafting of standards, I know that we have an institution in Lebanon called Libnor. They are actually now in the process of drafting standards, and what the person who asked the question said is really very true, because I have been told that the standards that we are using in Lebanon and the old standards are quite stringent, and because we used to use the FAO standards, the FAO standards. So apparently now, we are allowed to use less stringent guidelines based on what is recommended by the WHO. What we will do, I'm happy to that I have been requested to have a look at the draft standards which are being developed for Lebanon, but also to contributing to the committee which is now developing standards for Lebanon. I take this question into account when I'm doing this, and we will definitely, I mean, use the least stringent but also acceptable standards, because we really need every drop of water, all while paying attention to the types of crops and what is acceptable for each and every crop. But this is true. And I heard from this committee who is working on drafting the standards that apparently what we have been using, the old version of the standards, is very stringent, and the more recent guidelines are allowing for you know, less stringency in this respect. Over to you, John.
I appreciate it. A great answer. Do we have time for one question? Okay, short question from online.
Okay. Yeah, that was hard because there was a lot. But so one question is, well, thank you for the good presentations. Can you please elaborate on the opportunities of using treated wastewater in artificial recharge of groundwater?
That sounds like a Mohammed question. Mohammed, could you weigh in on that issue, please?
Yeah, thank you. Well, once again, as I said, we have started that in Gaza because of a number of reasons, faced as water storage, but again, to improve the quality of the aquifers in the North Gaza Strip, because desalination is going really high. And we have thought of that as an opportunity to improve the quality of the aquifers as well as for storage, and to make use that we can use the pumped water at the right time. Thank you.
Excellent. A great short, a comprehensive answer. I want to just end before I pass over to my colleagues, if I could ask all of you to compliment our three panelists. I think in this region, we often see a story here of crisis, of suffering, and what I think we've seen in these three presentations are stories of resilience, of bravery, of creativity, and deep resilience. That's a real strength from the deep roots of this region. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also thank you to John for moderating the panel and the question and answers. Okay, before I will give some last thank yous to everyone, I would like to invite Dr. Arwa Abdelhayed to the stage for some closing remarks and some key takeaways from the session. She's a professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at the German Jordanian University in Jordan. And she's also the West Asia North Africa representative in the Global Steering Committee of the Sustainable Sanitation Alliance, which we'll hear a few words about.
So first of all, allow me to start by thanking the audience for taking the time to come and join our session. So thank you so much. Shukran jazilan. And I would like also to thank our presenters for their insightful and informative presentation. Thank you so much for providing us with this rich information. Actually, just to echo what our presenters have said, and also the key messages I collected from the panel discussion, I will be just highlighting some takeaways or key points. I think it was quite clear that we are talking about a scarce, water scarce region that is highly impacted by climate change. And that's why I will be just, as I said, underlining some points quickly about the wastewater situation, the challenges, and the way forward that has been already mentioned by the three presenters in the three showcases in order to maybe address this complex situation. So there was, I think there was a clear call to set and apply realistic standards in order at least to promote monitoring and evaluation mechanisms
in the region. There was also a call to mobilize financial resources to overcome the underinvestment, which has been mentioned by our presenter from Palestine. There was also, I think Manal touched on the governance framework, where also she mentioned like encouraging public-private partnership as a key action that should be also undertaken. I think these are also the collaboration with the academia was also mentioned as a valuable action that might be also undertaken. Some touched on the social acceptance, which is, I think, critical point that should be addressed whenever it comes to wastewater reuse. I know that very well because I am from the region. I am from Jordan. So just if you are curious to know more about this wastewater journey in the region, and especially also in Jordan, I would kindly invite you to come and consult the Sustainable Sanitation Alliance website, and just to let you know, this is an informal network where we are bringing together partners and members from the different like organization, international, different stakeholders to come together and to discuss the challenges and how to address them by maybe implementing some innovative solutions in the region. And we have a specific chapter for West Asia and North Africa. So it's the WANA chapter. So please, if you want to exchange knowledge, if you are looking forward for collaboration, potential collaborations with local organizations and local stakeholders, please consult our this website of Susanna. And finally, I would like to invite you tomorrow morning at 10 to the booth to have more insight into what has been presented so far, which is the Susanna Wana Mingle session. So we will be there to answer your questions and to have some quick chats about this topic. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Thank you. Also, thank you, Dr. Arwa. Also, tomorrow at the Mingle, we will launch a publication on the wastewater journey in Jordan. So if you want to learn more about Jordan, please come take a copy. And also, we have a 40 years of water sector Jordan publication here, a few copies left, as Jordan is represented quite strongly in this year's World Water Conference. So feel free to reach out to any of the colleagues for further questions. Thank you. And thank you to all the speakers. Especially also to John for co-moderating, and to all the colleagues who supported in the back. Thank you.